Hi guys, welcome back to Unfiltered. Today's episode has been crying at me for a while, but what sealed it was when a friend asked me this question: when are you going to talk about self-doubt? I, replied in what aspects, and a response hits me. Guy, self-doubt is a lot. I feel like I can't do some things, and when I try, sometimes I do it wrong. Sometimes I do it right. I also feel like I've failed in my business, and I also can't get a job because I think I'll fail at that too. And in that moment, I realized something. So many of us are quietly battling this same feeling, and it's not just young people. I know self doubt feels like this private war in your head, but let me tell you something. You are not the only one in the trenches. Because I was having a conversation with a friend currently enrolled in MSc. She told me about how adults, people that are way older than her, literally fidget during project presentations. And that part actually gave me a jolt, not from surprise, but because we often think when I get older, when I get more educated, I'll have it all figured out. But clearly, that's not true. Self-doubt doesn't respect age, education, or experience. It shows up everywhere. I've been thinking about why self-doubt is so heavy, especially for us here in Nigeria, and honestly, I think it's because most of us grew up in a society where the expectations were figure out life by a certain age, don't ask too many questions, and mental health, never a priority. Our parents' generation didn't talk much about mental health. In fact, they didn't have a language for it, so we inherited silence. But now, life is harder, the economy is brutal, social media is screaming, you are behind, and you're just trying to breathe. So, during the conversation with a friend, I told my friend this: doing something right or wrong isn't proof that you can't do things or you can. It's proof that nobody has all the answers. Trial and error is part of growth. And for those of us with businesses, my friend said she feels like a failure in her business, and I said, I don't think you are failing. I think you are just not marketing enough. Because truth is, your WhatsApp contacts, they're just friends and family majorly. And quite frankly, most can't even afford to patronize you right now. And I promise you, it's not you, it's the situation. That's why you need to take your word beyond your circle, explore other social media platforms. It's slow at first, but consistency works. I started creating these, pages for this podcast after just 3 episodes. Some posts have 0 likes. They still do, but I'm showing up because I know growth takes time. And for jobs, please hear me. You are not scared of failing at the job. You are just frustrated by a system that makes getting a job almost impossible. We all know the job market in Nigeria is insane, so it's not your fault. Look at many of us years after school and service still applying for graduate training programs and not having a form of clarity. To make it worse, accommodation limits a lot of people from the job they could at least start with. So basically, I was hunting with no certainty about the next paycheck. Social media won't show you that, but this is the reality for so many of us. And here is where it gets deeper, because self-doubt isn't just about skills. It's connected to something bigger: our mental health. Now, let me clear this up. Mental health is not the same as mental disorder, which is not the same as mental illness. Struggling with self-doubt doesn't make you crazy or mad, because here is the reality. 1 in 4 Nigerians, that's about 50 million people, are living with some form of mental illness. That's from World Health Organization. Depression, anxiety, they are everywhere. Yet Nigeria has less than 300 psychiatrists for 200 million people. Just imagine that. Now, because of stigma, most people don't even seek help. Instead, they hear things like pray about it or stop overthinking, as if there's an on and off switch for that. But mental struggles are not weakness, they are part of being human. As always, let me make this personal. I battle with my own share of self-doubts. In the past, I would see job vacancies and skip applying because the responsibility didn't look like something I could undo, or the required years of experience felt like a barrier. I would ask myself, do I even fit into these levels? Sure, experience is important, but there were roles that I knew I could excel in, and yet my self-doubt held me back. Until I came to the conviction that what's the worst that could happen, and I would rather they think I'm not good enough for them than me thinking that for myself, and quite frankly, it's their loss. Now, being personal, this podcast right here, I've always wanted to speak to people, but the thought of having a Spotify account, being the person someone listens to, I question myself, am I all that? I know I'm intelligent, I hold intelligent conversations, but starting something like this, I never would have believed it years ago, but here we are. So, if you are listening and doubting yourself, whatever it is, you are not alone. We've all been there, we're all still there, and it doesn't make you less human. So, how do we fight self-doubt when the world feels this heavy? First is to start before you are ready. Waiting for perfection will keep you stuck. One study even notes that people considered exceptionally smart, often labeled geniuses, sometimes underachieve because they wait for everything to be perfect before even starting. It becomes paralysis. Meanwhile, ordinary folks will just begin imperfections and all end up getting things done. Second is to focus on what you can control. Let go of what you can't. I know it's not easy, but you can do it. Third is to apply for that job anyways. Every job trains you, so why not just apply? Finally, keep showing up. Trust me, consistency beats perfection. And most importantly, stop comparing your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel. Because if you saw my profile status, you think I've got life figured out. But truth is, I'm juggling uncertainty like everyone else. So now, this episode is just the beginning. I know there's probably not a thing as sequel in podcasting. But again, who made the rules? The next few episodes is going to be focused on adult mental health struggles, real life issues like imposter syndrome, anxiety, burnout, and emotional exhaustions. Because these conversations need to happen. If you've ever felt like something's wrong with you for struggling, listen to me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are human and you are not alone. So, if you're listening to this and doubting yourself, whether it's your work, your business, your relationships, breathe. You're not failing, you are learning. So, thank you for sticking with me on this journey. If this episode spoke with you or spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And If you do need to talk more regarding this, you can send a DM on any of the social media platforms and we can have the conversation. As always, keep your hearts unfiltered. See you next time. Bye.